A round of applause. For this organization is an impressive organization. This year's conference is hosted in Kenema district, in the city of Kenema, the land of the wise. Kenema City is the third most populous city in Sierra Leone, after Freetown and Bosis. It is home to a significant population of many of Sierra Leone's ethnic groups, with the Mende as the largest. The population of Kenema district is majority Muslim, though it is home to a significant number of Christian minorities. Kenema district is also the home, in case you did not know, of Mohamed Kalon, who was born in this city and is widely regarded as the best footballer Sierra Leone has ever known. Now, we are all here to grace the 2024 annual conference of the most enviable profession in Sierra Leone, in all its pomp and pageantry. I need you proud to be a lawyer. Yes, I am also proud to be a lawyer. It seems as if everyone in Sierra Leone wants to be a lawyer. All the universities are overwhelmed with applications. Even us at the Sierra Leone Law School are overwhelmed with applications. So much pressure. Therefore, we meet again this year to evaluate ourselves, our achievements, our judiciary, our laws and policies, our governance, machinery. Thus, the conference theme, which reads unconstitutional change of government and its threat to democracy. We are also here to set new goals for the association for the ensuing years to come. This year is of particular significance as we will be drawing content on the reign as we will be drawing content the President, Mrs. Eugenia Michaela Swallow. I did not see Sandy on the program, but I will say Sandy. We shall be electing new leaders of the association. Let me say it at this moment that the whole world is present in this form. As lawyers, let us comport ourselves. Let our actions in this conference be as honorable as the profession itself. Let this conference be an opportunity for members of the bar to learn from each other and grow together. My role as chairman is to warm your way through the program. Without much ado, let me now plunge into the next item of the program, which is the goodwill statement. The first set of speakers only have 5 minutes to speak. As you all know, we are starting late, so I'm going to act both as chairman and as timekeeper. So please do your best to either speak within.
Merci, donc, Mr. Chairman, I note that the program of this event was not put in the membership for adoption. I therefore suggest that the program of event, the program of the order of program of event be put to the membership to be adopted.
Why?
It is the company.
Mr. Chairman, I think that is common practice.
In the AGM.
Yes, in fact, even the AGM that the order of program, that the order of program be put to the membership to be adopted.
All right, that's clear, I know. Is someone move the motion for the adoption of the program?
No, let's go back to our This is not the conference. This is the conference for the elections.
Okay. Just a moment. The president and the executive are saying that this is just a conference and the annual general meeting will be tomorrow. And so here we have a lot of guests as well. The big ceremonial.
Mr. Chairman, I understand the starts today and it's a 2-day program. That is my understanding. I stand to be corrected.
Please permit me to overrule you on this. Thank you. Tomorrow we'll approve the agenda. Thank you. I will now call on the ombudsman of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Mr. Tijjani Ahmed Israel. Mr. Jah, you only have 5 minutes, and your time given.
Mr. Chairman, the Landed Attorney General, Minister of Justice, Deputy Ministers, galaxy of distinguished members of the High Table, esteemed colleagues, good afternoon. I've been asked to speak on the theme, make a good statement on the theme of constitutional change of government and its threat to democracy. I give the introduction. Based on empirical data across the continent of Africa, on constitutional changes of government are a fundamental threat to democracy. Conversely, failure to consolidate democracy results in unconstitutional change of government. This is because the first and most basic element of liberal democracy is to ensure the constitutional rise to power through regular, participatory, competitive, and legitimate elections. However, a writer named J. Shola Omotola, in his article on constitutional changes in Africa, argues that liberal democracy in the African continent has been critiqued as frustrating the emergence of popular or people democracy, thereby becoming a source of popular disenfranchisement and disempowerment. Yet, I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that liberal democracy continues to enjoy widespread legitimacy as the universally accepted human political organization. Through its Constituent Act of 2000, the African Union firmly committed itself to promoting human and people's rights, democratic principles, popular participation, and good governance. And also through the Algiers Declaration of July 1999, the AU initiated the principles of total rejection of unconstitutional change of government and affirmed it as a sacrosanct and cardinal principle for the continent. The Lome Declaration of 2000 further embellish or establish the framework corresponding to unconstitutional change of government. They include, as the definition would refer, 1. Military coup d'etat against democratically elected government. 2. Replacement of democratically elected government by armed dissident groups or rebel movements. 3, the refusal of incumbent governments to relinquish power after free, fair, and regular elections. Also, the 2007 African Charter on Democracy, Election and Governance added another definition to include the amendment or revision of a country's constitution contrary to its democratic principles. And of course, now we have the usual third-term agenda or after you agenda. As a matter of fact, Article 28E of the Malabo Protocol of the African Court of Justice and Human and People's Rights, which is intended to serve as the legal basis of the African Criminal Court, defines the offense of unconstitutional change of government as the commission or ordering to be committed a number of specified acts with the aim of legally accessing or maintaining power. And those number of specified acts are what I have defined recently. Okay, Chairman, 2 minutes. Now we go to the reasons why there are constitutional change of government. So the African Governance Report 2023 stipulates that integrity of democratic elections, diversity management, constitutional order, economic governance, and popular uprising are some of the catalysts that categorizes the elements that form or catalyze into constitutional change of government. So these are the things that cause it. One, we have the structural factors, political factors, and military factors. Come on, let me please. So one thing I want to say as ombudsman, how do the office of the ombudsman contribute to ensuring that there are no constitutional change of government? One, the office of the ombudsman, as you know, is a quasi-judicial institution. Two, it's a good governance institution which preaches or advocates for democracy as well as the rule of law. Number three, we render justice to the people. So in essence, where citizens are aggrieved or have grievance against the people or the state or government official, they can always resort to the office of the ombudsman to hear their grievances, and those grievances can be investigated and necessary recommendations be made.
Let's give him a massive round of applause. A massive round of applause. Thank you, Mr. Ombudsman. I will now call on a very senior colleague, the chairman of the General Legal Council, Mr. Sulaiman Banjat Jansi. You only have 5 minutes. Let's applaud him.
5 minutes minus 1. Mr. Chairman, please allow me to stand on the existing protocol. Let me start this goodwill message by asking all of us to rise and observe a minute's silence for our dear departed colleague, the late counsel, Emmanuel Donji, who departed this earth about a week ago, and for all the people, the departed members of the Sierra Leone Bar. The ease and their precious souls rest in perfect peace. Thank you. The theme of this year's conference is both timely and relevant, in line with the ongoing constitutional review process and the position of the bar as the ultimate prosecutors and defenders of the rights and democratic aspirations of the citizenry. Colleagues, distinguished guests, the Cambridge University Press is defining the scope and legal abhorrence of unconstitutional change of government in Africa in an online publication on 2nd May 2019, had this to say: one of the most interesting and controversial crimes that that belong to the subject matter jurisdiction of the newly to be established African Criminal Chamber is undoubtedly the crime of unconstitutional change of government. As my learned junior just said earlier on, Ombudsman, Article 28E of the Malabo Protocol, which is intended to serve as the legal basis of this future African Criminal Court, defines the offense as the commission or ordering to be committed of a number of specified acts, with the aim of illegally accessing or maintaining power. These acts, they are just mentioned to you. Distinguished colleagues, the recent chapter of coups, particularly in West Africa, is both troubling and unfortunate. It is to say the least traumatic, as it takes us back a few decades to the unglamorous 1970s and 80s, when military coups and bloody rebellions became the goal for replacing elected authorities all over the continent. To go as far as meeting ECOWAS border experience the position of two writers, Ruben Twinobonjumi and Hannah Musi, who insisted that those rebellions were as a result of the inadequacy of the African Union to hold the continent together. Who's in Africa? I will just conclude. Who's in Africa, distinguished colleagues, will not stop to hunt us until we get rid of the excuses the coup leaders give for stoking coups. Africa is blessed with people of leadership and repute. If as a people we are really committed to fighting corruption, ethnic violence, colonial exploitation, external aggression, and working for the good of Africa and its people. I thank you very much.
Let's cheer him. Let's cheer him. He deserves a loud applause. Thank you very much. Our next speaker will be the Anti-Corruption Commission, Mr. Francis Ben Kaifala. He has allocated 10 minutes, but I will reduce it to 5 minutes. So you are the commissioner. You know how to stick to rules.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Attorney General, Minister of Justice, Madam President of the Bar, the keynote speaker who has been identified, a distinguished gentleman, a friend of mine, I know will do justice to the program. Not just because the threat to democracy in the region has raised its ugly head in Sierra Leone. We all know that recently there was an attempt by renegades to take over government unconstitutional. And that challenges us at the Commission and everybody in Sierra Leone to be capable of doing their work and producing for Sierra Leone. Therefore, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chairman, I wish that when you deliberate here today, come up with conclusions after this conference. They will work towards the good work of Sierra Leone and for Sierra Leone to come out to be one of the most respected nations in the country. Lawyers at its center. Thank you.
Thank you for saving time. Maybe we'll allocate some of that time to the next speaker. Our next speaker will be the titular head of the Sierra Leone Bar Association. It's a great pleasure to invite the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Mr. Mohammed Lamin. We only have 5 minutes. It has been reduced to 5 minutes.
Madam Chair, I just want to remind Madam President, I just want to remind the Chair, Bodo Bonsa said that when he was introducing me to the stage, I called him against the traditional of the bar, and for him to time me. It's not a threat, I just want you to know that I'm here to Madam President, quite short. It is the honor as a traditional head of the bar to stand before this August gathering of legal practitioners, advocates of justices, and champions of the rule of law to present on the unconstitutional topic on the constitutional change of government, the effects, the reasons, and how to mitigate the same. In recent times, we have witnessed an alarming rise in the number of governments being toppled through undemocratic means. This trend poses a significant threat to the stability of nations, the integrity of our legal profession, and the protection of human rights. To begin with, let us consider the far-reaching effects of unconstitutional changes of government. These are not just abstract legal concerns, but issues that directly impact the lives of citizens, the functionality of institutions, and the international standing of a nation. Colleagues all, our annual assembly serves as a forum for reflection, collaboration, and collective action to address the pressing challenges and opportunities facing the legal profession and the administration of justice in our society. As we assemble today, I'm inspired by the unwavering commitment and tireless effort of each member of our prestigious association in advancing the cause of justice, defending the rights of the vulnerable, and upholding the principles of fairness, equity, and integrity. In today's rapid change of this and competitive role of the legal profession has been more vital in consideration in relation to the topic. As stewards of justice and guardians of constitutional integrity, it is imperative on us that we address the issues of unconstitutional changes of government. These occurrences, whether through coup d'etat or any insurrection or any other means that subvert the rule of law and democratic principles, have profound effects on the peace, stability, prosperity, and human rights of our nation and the citizens. Africa is witnessing a troubling resurgence of oppositional changes of government, a phenomenon that directly undermines the democratic principles, respect for human rights, the rule of law, and good governance. Madam President, the continent once filled with hope of democratic progress, following the democratic wave pressing issues. Madam President, Africa is witnessing the troublesome resurgence of unconstitutional change of government, a phenomenon that directly undermines democratic principles, respect for human rights. It is also clear its unwavering stance against constitutional change of government. African Union's principles of total rejection of unconstitutional change of government emanate from the Organization of African Unity way back in the year 1999. African Union Assembly of Heads of State and Government, along with the AU Peace and Security Council, have expressed hope and deep concern over this alarming resurgence of military coups. They acknowledge that these coups undermine democracy, peace, security, and stability on the continent. Since 2020, there have been several unsuccessful coups around the world, but several successful coups in Africa, with the majority of them taking place in West and Central Africa. This includes the ones in Niger, Chad, Burkina Faso, etc. For it all, unconstitutional change of government unleashed a cascade of detrimental effects, plunging nations into turmoil and instability. They erode the trust in democratic institutions, jeopardize human rights, impede economic growth, and sow seeds of discord within society. The result in power vacuums often lead to violence, exacerbating humanitarian crises, and prolonging suffering of innocent civilians. The aftermath of such actions can be prolonged and have far-reaching consequences for our generation. To mitigate the risks associated with unconstitutional change of government, we must adopt a multifaceted approach that addresses both the causes and the symptoms of the phenomenon. This requires concerted efforts of national, regional, and international levels.
short screen, power supply. The AG will now come to visit.
Any colleagues who sorry for the water transmission, whether for the cleaning transmission. But however, we continue from this point. Colleagues, to mitigate the risk associated with constitutional change of government, we must adopt multifaceted approach that addresses both the root causes and the symptoms of economic. Domestically, we must strengthen democratic institutions and we must bolster the independence, transparency, and effectiveness of our democratic institutions. That is why my office has been providing leadership on some of the major legal reforms which aim to strengthen our country's democratic sector. We have abolished the death penalty, decriminalized defamation and seditious libel, defending freedom of expression, enacted the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act, and we are on course to complete a constitutional review process, and also we are also on course to complete the Criminal Procedural Act. Promoting the rule of law, holding the rule of law is essential in preventing constitutionality in government. This entails equal access to justice. Furthermore, given the transnational nature of many challenges related to constitutional challenges of government, international cooperation and solidarity are vital. We must work closely with regional and international partners to share best practices, scaling democratic norms, and prevent external interference in domestic affairs. Colleagues, the fight against constitutional change of government is a moral and collective responsibility. As custodians of justice and upholders of the rule of law, we must remain steadfast in our commitment to defending democracy, protecting human rights, preventing the sanctity of constitutional order. Only through such concerted action can we ensure a future where the rule of law prevails and the will of the people reigns supreme. Let me seize this opportunity to assure you all that the government of His Excellency, retired Brigadier Dr. Julius Madabio, remains steadfast in his commitment to upholding the rule of law, defending the Constitution, defending democracy, and safeguarding our nation against any unconstitutional change of government. A comprehensive mitigating strategy the government has put in place for it all to ensure that Sierra Leone is safe, not only for us, but for our future generation. I will conclude, colleagues, by extending my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of us. Our dedication, our passion, and our unwavering commitment to the noble cause of justice. Our invaluable contribution enrich our profession, inspire hope for brighter future. Together, let us continue to uphold the highest standards of integrity, professionalism, and ethical conduct as we strive to. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable General and Minister of Justice. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some distinguished personalities seated amongst us. I wish now to recognize them, and as I call on you, please stand up so that you are recognized. The Honorable Solomon Jamiru, former Press Secretary. The man who is responsible for making our president glow, the Press Secretary, current Press Secretary, Mr. Yusuf Thomas Nandi. Thank you for keeping the lipsticks from our president's lips. Thank you. Victor Binat Sana, Deputy Commissioner, Human Rights Commission. Our Lady Sabtiu Elizabeth Sako, and the Secretary. Mr. Ibrahim Tomei, Head of Crown, Sierra Leone. Honorable Julius N. Kofi, former Member of Parliament. Please. Only have one Attorney General in Sierra.
Thank you very much. But I was allocated 10 minutes as well. Mr. Chairman, cognizance of the previous constitutional changes taking place specifically within the African continent. The phenomenon of constitutional changes of government is gaining traction, especially within the West African sub-region. Such changes are evident in the leafy moves. Africa is once more at the threshold of democratization. The great hopes that were unleashed by the democratic wave that swept across the continent about 3 decades ago as a result of the combination of internal and external forces have begun to fade. Part of the result of this trend is an astronomical growth in the number of democratic refugees in most African countries. The term refugee here is used not in the narrow sense, but refers to the combination of the marginalized and excluded citizens leading to internal events that seriously threaten public order. Instead of public empowerment, participation, competition, and legitimacy, the democratization process in some African countries seems to have engendered a feeling of dispossession and growing alienation among the people. The mixed fortunes of democracy and the sense of foreboding about its reversal appears to have compromised all known principles of governance, including accountability and control, leading to the betrayal of the high hopes that attended the celebration of the freedom of democracy in the continent. As citizens are increasingly treated as citizens and consumers rather than as primary stakeholders in the democratization process, there is a great proclivity towards human insecurity. More people are being marginalized and were excluded from the politics and policy processes of their societies. More worrisome is that excluded people seem not to have access to redress in most instances. What are some of the results, the reasons that we think are responsible for the state of constitutional changes or demand for constitutional changes that we are seeing within the continent? Africa is witnessing a troubling resurgence of constitutional changes in government, a phenomenon that directly undermines democratic principles, respect for human rights, and the rule of law through governance. The reasons for constitutional changes of government are multifaceted and complex. Several catalysts have been identified, including but not limited to the integrity of the democratic elections, diversity management, constitutional order, economic governance, and popular uprising. These factors are further cataloged to structural, proximate, and trigger factors. Structural factors encompass political and military involvement in politics, state fragility, and issues of legitimacy, geopolitical shift, and economic challenges. There are also governance deficiencies such as greed, mismanagement of diversity and opportunity, marginalization, human rights abuses, refusal to accept electoral defeat, constitutional manipulation and corruption as potent triggers. Poor governance beyond the conduct of elections has had a role to play in the resurgence of coups. The socio-economic situation of the continent remains precarious. It is the absence of respect for human rights and people's rights that creates the conditions for military coups, and coups tend to be dead coups. What are some of the effects that we are seeing? Where you have a constitutional changes, of course, we need to see the militarization of the state. Resources that are meant for socio-economic development are diverted to address military issues. And in our current security paradigm, when you define security, We define security as freedom from want and freedom from fear. Freedom from fear is your physical security. Freedom from want and your human security related is absence of it is a recipe for insecurity. And based on the threat assessment to be consistently made for Sierra Leone, just on 1 2024-2026, 80% of our threats as a country are the absence of human security related issues. And that is lack of access to justice, lack of access to economic opportunities, poverty, lack of access to social amenities. And these are the things that trigger insecurity within the state. And each right to public disorder or public disenchantment, as this might be. The reincarnation of unconstitutional changes in Africa raised fundamental questions about the feasibility of democratic consolidation of the continent. Unconstitutional changes of government in whatever guise alters the equilibrium of the political system. This is manifested in many ways. One, unconstitutional changes of government generate political tensions and conflicts, which often degenerates into violence. Political violence leads to loss of life and property, refugees, and internally displaced persons. Unconstitutional changes of government also undermines the institutionalization of power. Governments usually deploy many state resources to buy with lawmakers and top politicians to support their constitutional ambition. Unconstitutional changes have also contributed to economic dislocation. In the long run, these complications dampen popular interest in and support for democracy and feed into mass apathy or a retreat into identity politics. As citizens become increasingly frustrated about the substance and relevance of democracy to their everyday survival. The recent phase of coups and constitutional changes lends credence to the assertion of the demise of democracy on the continent. What are some of the mitigating measures we think we can employ so that we can be able to at least ameliorate or address the issue of our constitutional changes? First off, I think we have to make a deliberate and conscious effort as a country to depoliticize the security sector. Depoliticize the security sector. Allow the sector to be professional. When you are within the pool of the security sector, you have the tenure of police authority. But when you politicize the sector, then it becomes a civic space for the population, including civil society and the media, to share concerns and to proactively respond to the population's legitimate concerns, aiming at enhancing transparency, inclusivity, deepening commitment to democracy, accountability, inclusivity, participation, reconciliation, and good governance. In order to facilitate the processes of socio-economic transformation, it is necessary to facilitate open and participation of people in processes of government and development. A political environment which guarantees human rights and observance of the rule of law will assure high standards of probity and accountability, particularly on the part of those who hold public office. In concluding, let me note that the various forms of unconstitutional activities of government constitute great dangers to the peace, stability, security, and democracy and consolidation of democracy within the continent. Unconstitutional activities establish dictatorship, they subvert democratic governance, preclude the exercise of the right of people to change the constitution or change their government, and lead to violation of human rights. Such an understanding will serve as an important road. Let me wish you, in concluding, a very fruitful discussion, resolution, and productive outcomes of your 2 days celebration, with a view to strengthening justice sector service delivery to the people of Australia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kenema. As lawyers, that we do not revert to such unfortunate situation. Some of the things we should take home is that we should depoliticize our security sector. That we must do our best to solve our developmental challenges in decision making. Violation of democratic principles we must avoid, and there must be free, fair, credible elections. Let's give it a round of applause. Thank you. Let us continue to recognize God distinguished personalities amongst us. There is only one legal man in Sierra Leone, and that is Madam Joanto. Let's cheer. Let us also cheer Ambassador Aliu Khan, the former head of IS. And let us cheer the chairperson of the National Revenue Authority, Madam Tuma Adamaja. You know, lawyers have a bad reputation, not only on earth, but even in heaven. Just an engineer went to heaven and knocked on the door. And then Angel Michael told him that no, his place is in hell. So he went to hell. And within a month, they have constructed bridges to hell. They have installed jacuzzis in all of the rooms, installed ACs in all of the departments and units in hell. Our Almighty God was quite displeased and called Satan. What is that man doing in hell? He becomes to heaven. And Satan said to him, my Lord, he went to heaven, but Angel Michael sent him to hell. And God commanded him, said, he must be brought back to heaven, or else I will sue you. And then Satan told to God, now you think the lawyers are. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to that moment where we will listen to the keynote speaker. But before I call on the keynote speaker, let us have someone to introduce me. I will now call on the treasurer of the Salon Association, Madam Martina Bedu-Igenda, to introduce our keynote speaker. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Beloved Attorney General, Minister of Justice, senior practitioners, colleagues, all ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My task here is to introduce keynote speaker for this year's annual general meeting of the Sierra Leone Association. Our guest speaker has over 20 years experience with civil society, government and donor agencies, and have managed multiple institutional reform projects in Africa, ranging from justice and security sector reform, electoral reform, parliamentary reform, civil society strengthening to decentralized service delivery. He was trained at Public College, University of Sierra Leone, and in Ibadan, Nigeria, and London. He has distinguished himself as an expert in democracy promotion and public policy. He holds the Presidential Award for his role in bringing citizens living evidence in policy making in Africa. His award, Commander of the Hotel, announced in conjunction with Independence Day celebrations in 2021, is Sierra Leone's most prestigious decorated of citizens who have distinguished themselves in public service, art, sciences, and philanthropy. The presidential citation highlights the guest speaker's innovative and non-combative state citizen engagement model. For jointly addressing the country's challenges, he worked with over 750 civil leaders and groups in 2018 and 2023 to develop citizens' manifestos of Sierra Leone, a non-partisan document that facilitates the incorporation of ordinary citizens' priorities and expectations in the manifestos of political practice. As a national partner for the Afrobarometer in Sierra Leone, our guest speaker is the source big data on democracy, governance, and development of the African continent. Some of his recent work include violence entrepreneur, understanding the actors and incentives behind the November 26 failed coup, and a video documentary series titled Tragedies of Politics. As a former country manager for Westminster Foundation for Democracy, our guest speaker has been instrumental in building the parliamentary service for Sierra Leone and strengthening political parties. His work has been cited by many national and international institutions of governance and has delivered lectures at the University of Chicago, American University of Washington, D.C., and Seton Hall University in New Jersey, among others. Our guest speaker is the founding executive director of a policy think tank in Sierra Leone, Institute for Governance Reform, also known as IGR. With funding from the World Bank, IGR's report broadening access and quality, citizens' feedback, and on state of health and education services in Sierra Leone was debated and adopted by Parliament of Sierra Leone in December 2021. Ladies and gentlemen, can we put our hands together for Mr. Andrew Thomas Lavani, Executive Director, Institute for Governance Reform.
And talk for as long as you wish.
Thank you very much. You know, you talk to, you really talk. The chairperson, Lord, the Chief Justice, the Attorney General, Minister of Justice, and his colleague ministers, the National Chief Security Coordinator, distinguished speakers, executive and members of the Sierra Leone Association, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. So before I go to the things I wanted to say, I think two things should go unnoticed. With that introduction, I only wish my in-laws would have been around. They would have known that their daughter never made the wrong choice. And colleagues, I must say that this is the first time I'm wearing this suit, and I actually need photos because I cannot take a selfie of myself. But let me start by doing the usual thing. That is my thanking all of you for taking your time for the next 15 minutes. That's what the chair gave me. You know, to give you my thoughts. With mixed feelings, I must say that I'm here to talk to you at this moment in our country's history, and of course, in the circumstances in which the last situation faces itself. But let's face it, I am an unarmed person. Meaning, there are some of you here who have been my students in social sciences, but went to do law. I think it's unthinkable for you to expect me to tell you how the proceedings of this process will go. Moreover, given the great challenges that we have, given that there are a lot of people outside of this room that have their hopes pinned on the conversations here today, I think it's really unfair to me as an unlearned person, I must say again, for me to, work with the bar to chart the future that we all of us want together. But for those of us that did the classes, I attended the school just very close to Kenema, Christ College. I mean, we actually studied the classes. I'm comforted by a Latin maxim that says, "Uber Jews, ibi remedium." Where there is right, there is remedy. And it is in that light that I offer my genuine thoughts, hoping that you consider them as remedies for constitutional change of government and its threats to democracy. So one may ask, why should unconstitutional change of government be important to the bar situation? The reason is simple. As a student of public policy, I'm of the firm believer that there is a clear relationship between the rule of law and economic growth. And Sierra Leone is not of the woods. The coup that took place in 1997 that led to the ousting of His Excellency Dr. Muhammad Kaba destroyed its economy. It destroyed institutions, and I must say, up to this moment, will not recover. And the action in November 26 is a good reminder that those tenets are still there with us. And it's unfortunate, 20 years after 22 years of post-conflict peace building, that we can still think about coups in our land. So it's important for us to talk about democracy. Why is it important? Because if there are people who can go to the EBA and say, just all the things about me, that's democracy. That I can be invited here to respond to those comments or to say my bit, that's democracy. We need to safeguard this space because that's the true value we have to exist as brothers and sisters. I mean, with those, they were meant to be jokes anyway, but I never saw anyone laughing. I would like to zoom in on November 26, and definitely this for obvious reasons. As if organizers of this event have been following some of the work that we've done, I'll be sharing with you two pieces of work that we've done. There's one that was mentioned by Martina, which is it's titled the Violence Entrepreneurs, Understanding the Motivation. Speakers that have spoken about the reasons behind the constitutional change of power, the constriction and the contraction of democratic space, and the learning framework where they talk about the lack of resources within the states, and then the injustices by state institutions. But it is useful for us to understand the real motives behind November 26. Because November 26 left behind a mixed big, I could say, of interpretation. For some of them, it was motivated by economic hardship, and it was around the credibility of the elections in June 2026, and it echoes trends of coups in the region. And for others, it's a symptom of a deeper political division that leads an urgent need for national political dialogue. And for others, it's part of a chain of violent disturbances promoted by anti-democratic forces unsatisfied with the change of government in 2018. You may agree with the share of opinion to one follow, but for whatever reasons we have, it is useful for a body like this that prides itself as for studying evidence in school to dive beneath this superficiality to really understand why are we having disturbances in the region. Why are we having guns to resolve our issues? There is a school of thought that says that the November 26 event was not promoted by any political party. It was not promoted by any ethnic group. It was not promoted by any region. And I stand with that school to say November 26 was promoted by violence in the previous. It's valid to work, but there's a difference between violence in the Russian political economy and violence in Sierra Leone. In Russia, the violence institution actually kept the state, whereas in Sierra Leone, the violence entrepreneurs overthrew the state, violence entrepreneurs. Because sometimes it's not because it supports a particular ethnic group, it's not because it supports a particular entity, it's mostly because it's about themselves. And I will talk in place. And I refer to Shipman. Shipman, he wrote extensively on economics of violence. So what are the incentives that drive people to engage in violence? It's a very moral science that talks about how do we address insurgency, how do we address terrorism, how do we address crime. So what we did, what we are doing at the institute, which you will find in those two reports that I mentioned, we did background checks on some of these individuals, and then we asked ourselves, are these really proposing any interest? And I'll share two background checks on two of them. One is Idrissa Kamara. Idrissa Kamara is leather boots, for those of you who don't know. Let me just allow me to just share in a brief about leather boots. He reportedly sustained injuries during the attack and died in April. And he was a member of the force that actually overthrew Joseph Saidi Momo in 1992. When Saidi Momo was overthrown, the Labutu was attached to the Undersecretary of State for Mines and Minerals in 1992 and was really instrumental in the promotion of illegal mining trade, illegal diamond at the time. And after that, he was also one of the coup leaders in 1997 that overthrew the president at the time. That was the AFRC regime at the time. Some of you are young and you might not know what the Armed Forces Revolutionary Group was. But that was a group that was notorious for gross human rights abuses in Sierra Leone. So when Kenema took over in 1999, there was a return of democracy. Then I was actually left Sierra Leone. And so I think it's a great democracy. He only returned in the political system as one of the security personnel attached to one of the presidential flag bearer candidates. And just a year after, he was again involved in 2009 in the SLBA. There was a riot around the SLBA where the party office was bombed down. So he was involved in the Justice Thompson Commission, actually naming that. So ladies and gentlemen, tell me, if Leonard Booth was involved in November 26, is he APC? Is it because he's stealing? Is it because had Julius Maada been the president interested in Leonard Booth? He give him cash to do what he wanted to do. So I'm saying this because we need to understand that beyond politics, that we are all brothers and sisters, and there are good guys and bad guys amongst us. So sometimes labeling and framing of individuals, and tagging them to institutions, it makes it difficult for us to prosecute violent crime. There is another one who is Yese. Yese is Mohammed Yese Toure. He was imprisoned in Freetown on the night of November 26. He was already placed in prison trial for his alleged involvement in the plot in 2023, and he was an operational support division person of the Sierra Leone Police, and he was attached to State House during the 1997 overthrow of the Kenema. So when President Nkrumah came, the TAC was actually part of the security, the OSD division, and was given promotion. By the time President Nkrumah left, he has no chief superintendent. It's about himself. The TSA is known to be someone who has limited his record voyage. I don't know where he stopped in school, but I don't think he's among the least of the year. So like all coups in 1992, like the coup in 1997, like these individuals, they would have suspended the constitution had November 29 we should achieve that. It should be this major. So what are the lessons that we can learn?
4 things for me. Number one, first we must understand, but all the speakers have said, that we need to understand the terrain. That a potent network of anti-democratic forces at home and abroad are willing and are capable of disrupting the peace and security of our country for personal gain. And it's not about APC, it's not about SLBA. The November 25 coup, 25th coup, it follows patterns of Sierra Leone engaging in violence since 2000. We've had about three coups, three attempted coups, as reported by the state, since 2000 and since 2020. So in this day and age of social media, it becomes very easy to facilitate enterprises like that. So that's lesson number one, the existence, understanding the terrain. Lesson number two is to understand their motives. Election, normally they say we are agreed by election. And I tell you, I agree with what my elder brother said, but sometimes election is just a host, because no election is perfect. We saw widespread concern from domestic and international observers about the lack of openness in the results management in 2023. President Bio, 56%, we saw that for election, we saw that being contested by the opposition APC, and they had the right intention. We saw that my friend, the executive director of Center for Accountability and the Rule of Law, they published quite a book of material during elections alluding to repression of opposition supporters, especially in the southern and eastern districts. We saw that. We saw opposition leaders, David Claudius Cole, Dr. Dennis Bright, who believed that. We saw that. Just last year and the year before, we saw them being detained. But let me tell you, all these are bad, but the reality is they are not new. If we sit here and think, no, bad things started in 2018, or bad elections started in 2023, I think we'll be getting the diagnosis wrong. Let me just go back a little bit. In 2007, 477 polling stations were disqualified. At the time, the Electoral Commission never had any right to disqualify elections. And that amounted to 11% of the votes across the country. Given the nature of regional politics in Sierra Leone, if you extrapolate those votes in one region, it would almost amount to 15% of the results of one region. I'm saying this not to complain. I'm saying this because it happened and there was no power. There is no perfect election. Fast forward to 2012, at the time election council was formed, Madam Top actually announced the result, and she said, go police. There was no violence. No election is perfect. 2023 is not perfect. 2007 is not perfect. 2012 is not perfect. In fact, 1996 was the worst, where people voted, and at the end of the day, it actually brought, James Jonah brought Tijan Taban and John Kerry was mad, and he said, let's share votes. And he took 100,000 votes from Tijan Taban's vote and he gave it to John Kerry was mad. And that ended it. There was no violence. So why am I saying this? So we saw repression is not starting today. We saw at the headquarters of the opposition, for example, in 2009, the headquarters was attacked and set on flames. And we saw President Bill argue that I was attacked and I had my head busted. I'm not justifying it. But the point I'm making is, and this really comes to my third point, which is at the time as I'm speaking, Sierra Leone is at a point where the worst level of police rating, and I agree with that, we are now having the worst rating in our policing in terms of citizens' approval of police. It was around 30-something%. Now it's only 18% of citizens are saying that we trust our security force.
So there is something we call, because the bar association is well respected, and I see a lot of political parties on all sides trying to influence the bar. Don't get me wrong, you are not the only one that are being influenced by politicians. If you go to entire basis, politicians are there. If you go to the market group, politicians are there, of course, let alone IGR and institute about 15 staff. So political influence is everywhere. It's about how strong that group can be. So two things you can do. And I think the bar association should engage the SLBA and encourage them to take meaningful reforms of the legal and regulatory environment, as well as the institutional behavior. Like one mentioned the police. The bar association needs to encourage the SLBA to reform institutional behavior of the security system of the court, of the media. I mean, just 2 days ago, 2 weeks ago, at Press Freedom Day, there was reports of movement around, good movement around media freedom. But we are not all good. So the bar association needs to engage government. And the bar association needs to engage government on this whole approach for tit for tat. Among some people who believe, no, I was taught yesterday, this is the time for me to pay back. The bar association is uniquely placed to ensure that happens. The bar association needs to engage the opposition as well. Because the opposition cannot keep distrusting every institution. The opposition cannot keep mobilizing anger. Right now, as I speak, we cannot even talk about water. How do we get water for Sierra Leone? For the past 6 years, the only topic of the opposition has been election and voting. How do we get alternative solutions? If that is left with the bar to see how that can be engaged. And the more the opposition talks about election, the more you mobilize your supporters to think about nothing but election. And that is a toxicity that we see in our politics. So ladies and gentlemen, when we look back, we see that when a country creates poverty, when you reduce your citizens to subhumans, all of us here will not be free. There can be no security held if hell comes next door. And this brings me to a perfect place, Mr. Chair, to end my comments. And I would like to end with Kaplan. Kaplan, I don't know how many of you are persuasion people, SLP side, APC side, of nothing with people that they should be lecturing as to how to behave better. I think that's something we need to consider in the deliberation. Thank you.
He deserves a louder cheer. No one thing can say for Mr. Abdulabali, his papers are always well researched. They are always well researched. But one thing we must take home from his speech, in all what has been said, is the role of the bar association to prevent unconstitutional agreement. Bar association is said must engage the government. Bar association must engage the opposition. And the bar must help to get alternative solutions. One thing none of the speakers spoke about is give advice to lawyers. Because lawyers always, especially in Africa, give bad advice to political parties. At times they are afraid to speak the truth, to give the right advice. Because there will be a barrage of accusations. And let me say this, not because he's seated here. Our ex-Attorney General, JFK, when his political party came up with a decision not to go to court, and this wasn't alive to hear those paragraphs. But as lawyers, we must be brave to speak the truth and politically to unconstitutional law. Ladies and gentlemen, in consideration of recognizing distinguished brethren, let me at this point recognize the Honorable Member of Parliament, Mr. Kenema. Now, an old man once said, the man looked at the doctor and said, I will choose lawyer's hands. And then a successful transplant operation is done. At the end of the operation, the doctor asked his patient, why did you choose the lawyer's hands? And the patient said to the doctor, lawyers never use their hands, so I needed a grand one. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now break for tea break. Tea break. You know, the thing about this conference, you have tea break and have lunch. So let us break for 20 minutes for tea break. And I will advise all of us to leave the hall to be served outside because we are going to change the generators as well. So these guys are not important. Thank you and see you in 20 minutes.
I give out